Entrepreneurial job. Got it. Thank you. We are recording this. I am Robin Eisen, your Special Projects Manager for YEI, the Yippee Manager, and the host of today's Power Hour. Thanks to everyone who answered the opening question. I noticed that there was one person at least who liked connections, and I have to say that is my favorite game also. It arrived this summer, and you can play it on the New York Times. In case you don't know what it is, it's a game where you try to connect 16 words. A connection screen contains 4 rows of 4 words in each row, and the object is to find a connection among the words, sorting them into 4 coherent groups of 4 words each before running out of the allotted number of guesses. The puzzles tend to be tricky. Often 5 words seem like they could fit into one category, and therefore you must rethink your sorting and consider different relationships among all the different words. Usually there is some wordplay that is maddening at first and then delightfully clever. There are often references to pop culture. Some drag me down, like obscure sports teams and hip hop artists. Others I crush, like current events and movies. I am absolutely hooked. There's a certain thrill that comes from finding patterns, contemplating the nuances, and searching for commonalities among the words. And who doesn't love making new connections? Today, we will continue our series exploring the EntrepreNew program. We will be learning about using community partnerships to elevate your entrepreneurial learning, and we will be learning about connections in a different kind of way. Like all our power hours, we'll keep this to 1 hour recorded and send you all the information for your reference. Please feel free to ask questions during the call. And we're going to be learning today from the co-creators of the EntrepreNew Pathways curriculum and co-founders of the Startup Trade Up organization, Nadia Mullen and Emily Kilgore. So Nadia and Emily, it is all yours. Let's learn about connections.
Thank you very, very much, Robin. Give me just a moment. I'm gonna share here. And I want to make sure I am sharing sound from my screen. There we go. All right. We will make this a. All right, folks. So as Robin said, thank you very, very much for being here. We are here to discuss actually my very favorite thing, which is partnerships. I love talking about EntrepreNew, and I can talk about it all day long, but this in particular, the partnerships and the cross collaborations between industry and education are my favorite thing to talk about. So as we get started, Emily, did you want to introduce yourself?
Oh. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I am also super excited about being here with you guys today, not just because partnerships is great, because EntrepreNew is one of my favorite things to talk about. So I'm Emily. I've been a career and technical education teacher since 2006, and EntrepreNew has really built upon the experiences I had as a very non-traditional teacher that came into CTE education from the business background with no experience in education. So it is founded on my belief that children cannot be what they cannot see. And to do that, we need to surround them with access to all types of people in order to build their abilities, or the beliefs that they have in their own abilities in the future.
Excellent. And as Emily said, Robin, I think, Emily and I have been working together to create EntrepreNew and now run a company called Startup Trade Up, where we offer resources and services to folks trying to build programs like ours or implement this program in their communities. I'm Nadia. I actually was a student of Emily's way back in the day, her first year of teaching. And now we've come full circle. I've gone from student to partner. I have spent most of my career education adjacent, working in the private sector, but as a project manager for an education management organization. I've been an ESL instructor, both in brick and mortar and virtual situations. And I've been in and out of actually CTE as a partner and as a substitute. So As we jump in today, I want to give you an overview of what we'll actually be doing. Very briefly, we're going to discuss what Entrepreneurial Pathways is for those of you who might be very new to the program. Why entrepreneurial learning matters, something that I think we're all aware of, but it's helpful to remember, especially as the workforce and the economy and education is changing very rapidly. Then we're going to dive into the meat and potatoes of the session, which is the keys to successfully leveraging your partnerships. It's at that point that we're going to go through some very specific tools and resources that you have available to you for free through the curriculum. Finally, we'll look at some examples of successful partnership building and then talk about access to the materials, the full curriculum, as well as the materials we will review today. As part of the YEI exchange. And then at the very end, we'll have time for some questions. So to start, what is EntrepreNew? EntrepreNew essentially is a comprehensive and turnkey entrepreneurship curriculum for 10th through 12th grade students. When we say comprehensive, we mean it. You have everything you need from paced lesson plans to worksheets and assessments, anything you'd need to implement the curriculum in your classroom today. I do want to emphasize, if you are not a 10th through 12th grade teacher, if you're a middle school teacher, that's okay. Some of the work we're going to discuss today can absolutely be easily adapted for a middle school setting, particularly our speaker series. And if you aren't a business educator, maybe you don't teach entrepreneurship strictly, maybe you're a traditional classroom educator, that's also okay. These partnerships can be brought into classrooms in a variety of capacities. Today, specifically, we're going to be talking about the way to leverage partnerships through two pillars of the program, which are the speaker series and our mentor program. So when I refer to the specific resources that we review today, these are resources tied to the guest speaker series and the mentor program. A little bit of an overview, the speaker series is an opportunity for you to bring professionals, ideally entrepreneurs, from your local community into your classroom to talk about things like their biggest challenges, greatest achievements, how it is they ended up being an entrepreneur. Often they discuss things like what they were like and what they wanted to be and do when they were your student's age. We also have available to you as part of the curriculum a video series. So if you want to take a look later or when you get your materials, we have a number of entrepreneurs who have recorded their interactions with students. So you can get a little bit of a taste and understanding of what these speaker engagements might look like when they're in your classroom. We also have, the mentor program, where students are paired one-to-one with a professional who serves as their mentor over the course of the school year. They meet 10 times with their student, and those interactions are all structured. They're structured around these discussion prompts that the student and mentor have in advance and come prepared to work through during their meetings. So keep those two things in mind. We're going to be talking about partnerships through the lens of these two pillars, though most of what I discussed today, especially in the building, the finding and maintaining the partnerships piece, is sort of applicable to partnerships across the board and how you might find and source individuals to work with your students. So a little bit about why entrepreneurial learning matters. I'm not going to read these data points to you verbatim, right? I think we're familiar with a lot of these. The punchline is that small businesses make up a large part of our economy, and the rate at which small businesses are growing, particularly in the US, is wild. We were moving towards a lot more small businesses pre-COVID. That simply sped up the shift, and the growth is exponential. And as we look ahead to the next 10 years, there's a lot of conversation about automation and AI tools. Excuse me. And I think when we talk about those things, we think very specifically about tools like ChatGPT, these generative tools. And we don't realize that AI is much, much bigger than that. When we talk about automation, it is really not an exaggeration that 50% of existing jobs are poised to be automated within the next 10 years. When you use autocomplete, that's AI. Siri is AI. Your Google Assistant is AI. And those tools now, with the advent of something generative like ChatGPT, they can work together in a way that we can't really conceive of yet. Any sort of regular, repeatable or data task, something that might take someone, customer service even, or a team of people weeks to complete, is going to now take one person a fraction of that time. So over the next 10 years, reskilling is going to be necessary, not just for our students, but for ourselves, right? And that is why entrepreneurial learning is so important. It is the pathway through which we learn to reskill. It is how we are able to adapt and be flexible and persist through challenges like the world of work being inconceivably different in the next decade. It's how we innovate. We have to think of entrepreneurship education as synonymous with both workforce development and economic competition, right? If we're going to compete globally or thrive even at a local level, we have to instill entrepreneurial learning across the board. Then, of the top 5 most in-demand skills by 2027, 3 are directly related to the entrepreneurial mindset. We absolutely have to make these things a part of our regular learning. And the way to do that is through experiential learning. And I think we all know that, right? We all know that it's much easier and much more impactful to learn by doing. The challenge with skills like adaptability and flexibility is that they're sort of esoteric and intangible. It's a lot easier to get engagement and make impactful classroom learning with your hard skills. You know, if Susie sophomore wants to be a mechanical engineer, it's not hard for her to see how her classroom learning of geometry directly connects to what she wants. And the fact that she has picked that pathway for herself also gets you some buy-in. You can assume a degree of elevated engagement. When she crosses a trig lesson that makes her crazy, she's going to try a little bit harder to work through it because she knows it's part of her end goal. And then if you can gamify or build an experience around that, all the better. She's going to enjoy it and be even more confident in her path. It's a lot harder to do that sort of thing when you're talking about adaptability, right? When you have to teach Susie adaptability and create a project that challenges her to be adaptable, it's much harder for her to see that adaptability will mean something to her in 5 years when the job she's not sure she wants may not exist, right? The way that you create that engagement and that elevated sort of interaction and impactful learning is through these partnerships. That's why these partnerships are so important. When you can bring a professional that the student is familiar with, someone they respect from their community, the owner of a restaurant at which the student has eaten, or a store at which the student has shopped, and that person comes in and shares their experience about having had to be adaptable and how it led to their success, a success that the student can see, all of a sudden it makes a lot more sense. There's more direct linking, there's more clarity and value on the part of the student in learning and developing that skill, and there's more buy-in from the student to want to participate in activities that can be kind of challenging sometimes surrounding this skill growth. So that's why these partnerships are so key. So how do we successfully leverage these partnerships, and how do we bring these people into our classroom and ensure that their interaction with our students is meaningful? There are 2 parts to this. You got to find partners and then you have to maintain those partnerships. Now, the first part is actually very simple. You really just have to ask. And I say that I'm not being glib. I think people, I get so excited about this and I'm like, it's so easy. When I was first working with Emily to build the speaker series for the local program, I reached out to a gentleman named Tom Knepp. If you're here from Ohio, you may be familiar with Pulp Juice and Smoothie. It's a local franchise. They've been, I think they have about 50 locations across Ohio and Pennsylvania. I was acquainted with Tom from other work that I had done. So I called him and I told him about the program and I asked him.
What's talking crazy? Where's your head at?
I told him
Where's your head?
about the program and explained what we were doing and asked him if he would be willing to participate. And he said, yes, I've been looking for an opportunity like this, but had no idea where to start. I think I've just been waiting for someone to ask me. So I'm really not kidding when I say that it's as simple as asking. You're going to get folks, from all realms. There we go. And all walks of life who are thrilled to be working with you and sharing their expertise as partners to your program. When you ask, where do you start? You start with people you know. Contact entrepreneurs who are already connected to your school's community. Reach out to local civic organizations. Talk to your Chamber of Commerce. Talk to your local SBDC or your Small Business Development Center. If you have an incubator, here in Akron, we have Bounce. I believe there's a comparable innovator in the Youngstown area. We've also reached out to universities. We've talked to folks at the University of Akron to be connected there. They have a pretty interesting entrepreneurship program, sort of incubator that they run within the school. LaunchNet at Kent State has been great. Reach out to your community. Talk to anybody and everybody. If you are a CTE teacher, talk to your industry partners. Talk to the people who are already employing your students. Talk to the people who are letting your students job shadow. You have partners who are already willing and able to work with kids. If you are not in CTE, talk to your CTE counterparts. If you have a career and technical education program in your school or in your district or even in your county, talk to those teachers, ask for connections or ask to be introduced to their industry partners. Those folks in particular are a really great place to start because those partners that are already working with a CTE program have already been vetted, meaning they've passed any security or background checks required to work with students in your area. Make it easier on yourself. Start with these folks. When you reach out, you're going to reach out using a couple of tools. So when we talk about the mentor program, this document here is actually in the materials that you're going to receive as part of the curriculum. A lot of the things that I just mentioned, where to find your program, where to find your mentors, and how to identify areas of interest for your students, how and who to reach out to. These things are already in the documents you're going to receive as part of the curriculum. So you don't even have to take notes today. It's already there written for you. These documents are going to help you remember where you might start doing your outreach, and where you might start. Some pro tips for building these programs as you do start reaching out to partners. And you'll see you've got a very similar document for the speaker series. A lot of the same thing. Types of entrepreneurs that you may want to bring into your classroom, places that are, right, again, entrepreneurs already connected to your community. some talking points, right? These things help you prep them and help your partner be prepped. So you have some documents and resources that will sort of remind you and give you these pro tips, as it were, as you're building your program. Specifically, when you do start reaching out, you have one partner you really want to bring into your classroom. This document is going to be your favorite tool. So this document is available in the resources of the program. It's called Opportunities for Involvement, and it gives you sort of a brief overview of what the program is, and then a highlight of how your partners can get involved. So a very high level overview of what each role is, what the mentor role is, and what the guest speaker role is. But what's really great about this tool and all of the tools that we're going to look at today is that all of them are perfectly customizable. So when you look at this document and you're preparing to attach it to an email and share it with a possible partner, you can make changes directly in it, right? So when you tell them to contact you, you're going to update that with your contact info, and you're going to send it on your way. That's the really nice part about the tools that we've created. Everything is sort of ready to go for you, but can be customized for your program. And this particular document is extra handy. Imagine if you are working with, say, your Chamber of Commerce. Here locally, we collaborated with them in a number of ways. When I was first looking for partners, I sent a similar document and an email to the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, who then sent it out to every member. In 10 minutes, I had essentially effected outreach to hundreds of potential partners to bring into the classroom. The other half of this, you're reaching out, you're finding people. What happens when they say no? You keep asking. The asking part is actually not the hard part. It's really easy, and your response is going to be generally very positive. When someone does say no, or no, thank you, I'd love to, but I don't have the time. Okay, great. I absolutely understand. Can you recommend someone who might be able to participate? 2 years in, you might have 4 or 5 mentors working with your students, and you've had an exceptional mentor that you're thrilled wants to keep coming back. They come to you and say, my business is growing. I can no longer commit. Great, not a problem. Can you recommend someone who might be able to participate? Folks will refer you. Great partners will refer great partners to you. So now you've found your partners. Now it's maintenance. How do you make it easy to keep those partners, and how do you ensure that both them and your students are getting value? You have to make it easy. To be clear, I mean, make the partnership easy. That means easy for all parties, right? For your partner, for you as the teacher, and for your student. There are 3 ways to make your partnership easy. First of all, you got to set really clear expectations for all parties. Your industry partner, your student. A lot of times your parents, when you do a lot of activity with industry partners and people sort of outside the school system, the school ecosystem, it's helpful for parents to know what's going on. Being clear and setting those expectations across all parties makes the whole process very simple. Same with communication. You got to communicate clearly and frequently, and you have to prepare your students and your partners for the interaction. The last thing you want is to have this exceptional partner ready to come into your classroom, get there, and deliver an amazing story to a classroom full of blank stares and yawns. So we have 3 tools, again, part of the program that you have access to that will help you to do this very, very simply. The first is specific to our mentor program. It's an agreement. It's essentially a contract, and it lays out very carefully the expectations of everyone who is participating. The students are committing to review and prepare and be ready to engage when they meet their mentor. They're promising to demonstrate professionalism. You as the instructor are committing to your mentors. One of the biggest hesitations we get, one of the biggest objections you may come across when you start to seek out these partners, you'll find that many of them are really excited about the prospect of working with you and your students. They're also really intimidated about working with you and your students. These partners, they're worried that they have to create the programming themselves. They're often kind of intimidated to engage with high school students. So when you let them know, hey, they don't have to create the materials. I, the instructor, I'm going to let you know what you're doing every meeting. You don't have to bring that up. You get to be there and share your expertise with the student every meeting. You're taking some of that pressure and concern away from them. You let the parents know what's going on, and the mentors agree. I'm going to be here and I'm going to commit to meeting my student 10 times over the school year. Having this document and laying out those expectations early on is really, really helpful. It relieves a lot of the pressure on the part of the partner, and it overcomes a lot of the initial objections they have. What's the time commitment? How do I know it'll be valuable? Will the student know anything about me, etc.? Again, what's nice about this particular document is you can customize it. You're going to get access and you're going to be able to make copies and manipulate the document however you want. So if there's a section you want to remove, if there's an item very specific to your program that you want to make sure is included, you can do that without having to like reinvent the wheel here. We do recommend that you make your changes, you send it out to the relevant parties. And then the first time that your students and mentees, their mentors meet, have them sign the hard copy. Make it a part of that initial meeting. It's just another layer of ensuring that that those expectations are set clearly. You also have a document, mentor meeting dates and information. Again, for the mentor program, you have this document all laid out and designed for you. You're going to insert the number of meetings. Maybe you're only having your students meet with their mentors 3 times in the school year. Great. Choose the topics you're going to cover. The materials are already included in the curriculum. Pick and choose which ones you think are most valuable for your students. Fill in, remove, or otherwise manipulate the document to reflect your program. Let the mentor know, how long is a meeting? Is your class 45 minutes? Is it 90 minutes? Let them know, lay it out in black and white. Again, this document completely editable. You're going to do this once, save it, and then share it with your mentors throughout the school year, giving them everything they need to know to prepare for your students. You have something very similar for your guest speakers. Setting expectations is important. Here, you're going to give this information sheet to anyone who agrees to come to your classroom as a guest speaker. You're going to tell them things like where the meeting is going to happen. A lot of times partners come into our classroom. A lot of times we are fortunate enough to visit these partners at their place of business. So let them know and clarify where this interaction is going to take place. How long should they be prepared to speak? And then you have some pro tips for the guest speaker. Again, right? These folks actually get really intimidated having to talk to high school students. So give them some talking points. Encourage them to respond and engage with your students. Be prepared to ask open-ended questions to the students. Remember that you're talking to 15-year-olds. If you're in a middle school setting, update this. Remember, you're talking to 14-year-olds. You've got to talk at their level, right? So you have this complete document. Again, you can manipulate however you want. We do this once, usually at the start of the school year, and then have it ready to go to share with our partners as we come across them and interact with them throughout the course. So you've set your expectations, right? You've laid it out plainly and clearly. Now you need to communicate clearly and frequently. These are busy partners who are thrilled to work with you, but they needed a little help remembering. So when you confirm, when someone says, hey, awesome, I can't wait to come and talk to your kids, you're going to send them the information sheet I just showed you. And then about 2 weeks beforehand, you're going to send them that information sheet again and confirm that visit. People forget, but they nearly always come through. They really appreciate that you are reminding them and they are not the ones having to track your student schedule with their own. It also helps to remind them to prepare. When you're preparing for the interactions, so you had those worksheets, the dates, locations, talking points, what you're committing to when you agree to partner with the class. You have all of that. And in all of that, you have these tools that allow the partner to be prepared, questions they need to ask, how to interact with your students. The flip side of that is making sure that your students are ready to interact. We have these 2 documents. There's the mentor visit prep assignment, and then also the speaker preparation activity. They're very similar worksheets. Again, ready to go, freely available with the curriculum. Give these to your students beforehand. Encourage them to do a little bit of work, right? Who is this person coming into my classroom? What's their business? They're going to do a little research so they're familiar with the guest speaker, and they're going to prepare to ask questions. You're not going to find, they will not have the opportunity to be blank and boring and quiet because you will know before this partner comes into the classroom that your students worked on these things and have identified 3 things they find interesting, 3 things that they would like to ask, right? And the same thing for the mentor. So your students are prepared and ready to go and talk to these partners so that this interaction is meaningful for both the partner and the student. Excuse me. So we've spoken mostly about two parts, the guest speaker series and the mentor program, and we've looked at resources to build and maximize those things. There's a third component of partnership that is a part of EntrepreNew. Excuse me. And that is our problem-solving workshop with real-world business partners. This is an incredibly impactful and meaningful part of the program. If you do not already have partners with whom you work regularly, I recommend that you start trying to build a small series or a small group of mentors before you pursue the workshop. The workshop is incredibly rewarding. You spend several weeks working with this partner, helping your students develop a solution to a real problem that the partner is facing. So it takes the right partner and the right problem. It is, however, this workshop is that experience through which your students get to tangibly build and apply every skill associated with the entrepreneurial mindset: curiosity, creative thinking, analytical thinking. It's a really, really great workshop. But again, it takes sort of the right partner and the right problem. Should you choose to pursue that this year, if this is something that really excites you this school year or maybe early next, you have very similar resources to what we've already gone through. Also note, the resources as I have listed them here in this slide deck are how you will find them in the curricular folders when you access the program. Again, you don't need to take notes. You can just use the slide deck as your note sheet. You'll have very similar documents in those folders, fully customizable and editable documents that allow you to build your workshop, reach out to partners to find the right type of problem. We actually have 2 different samples, sample problems and sample solutions that we executed here at the local program through this problem solving workshop. So that's a really exciting piece, and I hope it's something you all dive into. It's appropriate for not just your entrepreneurial classroom, but even your, if you teach a civics class or a career skills class, a math class, even, it's really suited for traditional classrooms as well. It is big. We're actually doing another Power Hour session just on this workshop later in November. So stay tuned for that if that's something that interests you. So I wanted to jump ahead. We're here at the examples of successes. So to be super clear, everything that we have, everything that we discussed today, these are the same tools that Emily and I use to build our local program here in Cuyahoga Falls. It's offered through Woodridge High School and the 6th District Educational Compact. And at this point, 3 years into running the program, we have over 100 partners that engage with our students. And we built that network using those outreach tools that we discussed today. Of all of the people we've interacted with over the last 4 years at this point, in trying to build partnerships, one person has ever flat out said, no, thank you, I'm not interested in participating. I'm not kidding when I say just ask. People will want to be a part of your program. 2023, this school year, this was the first year. So we launched the program in 2020. That was the first year that the class was taught. And at the start of the 2023 school year, we had more entrepreneurs willing and able to participate as mentors than we did students in our classroom. And I believe the junior class has 28 students this year. So it really can be done, and it can be really meaningful. It does take a little time, right? We didn't start with more mentors than we can handle, but we have that now. And finally, we've done an iteration of the real world problem solving workshop every year since 2020, the 2020 school year. And in every case, our partner, sometimes a business, other times a community organization, in every instance, the partner has adopted some version of the solution and has actually applied it to their organization. Locally, we had a new menu item contest. A restaurant came to us and was looking to find, X number of new visitors to the restaurant and have those people come back 2 more times in a 90-day period. And that yielded a new menu item contest that the Tavern of Stowe actually put on. We've also worked with the city of Cuyahoga Falls on 2 occasions, both of which have yielded in citywide initiatives, both a river cleanup series and a No Mo May initiative. So I hesitate to start with those numbers because I think it sounds like a lot. I love to wrap up with those numbers because I love to be able to say that the tools and the processes and the recommendations that have been built into EntrepreNew really do have real world success, and they really are that functional. So before we get to questions, I think Emily wants to chat a little bit about implementation as well. So before I hand it off to her, it's through YEI and the Burton D. Morgan Foundation that the materials for EntrepreNew are freely available through YIPI. So you can find those at the Young Entrepreneur Institute on the their storefront on the YIPI Exchange. And then Startup TradeUp also has a storefront on YIPI where we offer support services, customization and training as folks are adapting or utilizing EntrepreNew in their classroom. You can use your YIPI points to work with us one-to-one. Emily, did you want to jump in and share your screen? Speak a little bit about your experience teaching the program for the last few years?
Yeah, there's no need for me to share my screen. I just wanted to talk to you guys about this because what Nadia is saying is so, from a teacher's perspective, when I started teaching back in 2006, I knew the power that partners brought into my classroom. but it was really difficult because I never had anything to give them. I never had any support for that. And while partnerships made my student engagement soar and they were able to see themselves differently, I spent so much time trying to find a way for them to fit. I also battled a lot about people wanting to come and work with my students, but then they would get really nervous because if any of you are high school students and you've worked with somebody outside of your school, like Nadia said, they're intimidated by that. And I could never find anything that really helped me hone in on real projects and experiences that helped me work on those skills. Those, at that time we were calling them 21st century skills. In EntrepreNew, we worked with entrepreneurs in focus groups to boil them down to the most important skills of the entrepreneurial mindset. And those 14 power skills that we have in EntrepreNew are really important. And I know teachers are busy. And this is what I want to tell you guys today is because of my experience, we have made these materials so you don't have to be busy. It's so turnkey. It's so functional for you. It creates the sustainability and partnerships that I know you want in your classroom. So it gives you time back. Now, she's talking about you need to reach out to all these people. It's so simple. You just send these emails with their sheets attached and it explains everything. So it's as simple as firing off some emails, or if you still like to print things and hand them out, you can. And it gives those partners everything they need to do and say. Now, what I think is really interesting, especially with the mentor program, is while we give you all the stuff that they need to do with your students, the beautiful part of these partnerships is that everybody goes in with them like these security blankets, like, oh, I know what I'm going to say and I'm going to do. But the relationships between the students and your business partners really flourish because they're not nervous anymore. They have their structure, but then they go off topic. And this learning happens that you never would have planned just from the discussion prompts we give you. So the relationships really do build themselves once you put everybody in the right place. And I find that while I do teach a business program, what's really cool about all of the materials that we have is it tricks kids into learning. There's nothing you can't teach around these experiences. So if you have somebody coming in to talk to your class, and maybe you're an economics teacher or social studies or history or heck, even math, they come in and an entrepreneur comes in and talks to your students, you can spin any concept off of this. Like every time we talk to a different entrepreneur, there's just a wealth of information that you can explore differently. You can talk to your students about. They just open up lots and lots of relevant conversations for pretty much any topic you teach, including math. Like we had a whole guest last week that we came back and we were talking about efficiencies and inventory and math, all the math that's needed in business. So it's a really good way to engage your students. Engagement soars when you have this. And I know a lot of teachers say to me, well, my students are badly behaved, or, I have concerns about this, and I get it. Like every one of us has that. But when you empower them with these tools and you bring these people in, I've seen kids take their piece of this much more seriously. And we've piloted this with other schools. Like while we did create it locally in my classroom, we did run this in other school districts too. So we've seen a wide range of students from all different types of backgrounds take this program and find a lot of success with the partnerships that were created. And it's all free. So like we have, what Nadia is telling you about today are just some partnership pieces that we have, but there's a very robust curriculum. So we're going to be offering those other power hours throughout the year to teach you guys more about specifically other pieces of it that you might want to incorporate, with what's left of this year, but as you plan for next year as well, including an assessment piece, because I know how important data and assessment is to a lot of us. So there's an assessment piece we can tell you more about too in our power hour that's coming up, I think in February. So thank you so much for coming and learning from us today.
Just to wrap up, I want to share one last item with you, and that is those upcoming dates. So we do have a couple of more Power Hour workshops, courtesy of our amazing partner, YEI. At the end of November, we're going to be taking a deep dive into that problem-solving workshop that we discussed. In February, we're going to talk about how to use EntrepreNew specifically in CTE. So if you have CTE counterparts, tell them to come join us. We're excited to instill entrepreneurial learning into those hard skills as well. And in March is that session on sort of the whole full robust curriculum and the data that you can collect, measuring real reliably measuring skill growth and skill growth in these entrepreneurial mindset skills through your adoption of EntrepreNew pathways. So that's all I've got, Robin, if you would like to.
Excellent.
Well, hold on. Let me
No,
jump in one more second, Nadia, or Robin. Let me just say
no
one.
problem.
I just want to clarify this because it can be a bit confusing. EntrepreNew is now an awesome product that YEI distributes. So when you go to YIPI, you're going to go to YEI's storefront. I know Nadia said this, but I just want to say it again. Go to the YEI storefront. All of the material access to you is free. You don't even need to use your YIPI points for that. You just go to them to access it. You'll get an email with a link to a shared Google Drive, and it has all of the resources for the entire program in it. And then you can use the pieces we talked about today. Now, if you want our help, because sometimes people look at this and are like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. Well, then us as Startup Trade Up, Nadia and I as Startup Trade Up can offer you, using your YIPI points, some support for that. And we can help you look at the materials and talk to you about what you're trying to do and give you some guidance and customizations on that as well. If you're an administrator or a curriculum director here today and you would like us to come to your school and offer professional development or implementation services, Startup Trade It can do that as well. That's not on YIPI, but you can reach out to us anytime and we can talk to you about that too.
No, thank you. I was actually going to do exactly what Nadia was doing there and just show everyone exactly how to get to it. So thank you, Nadia, and thank you, Emily. So this is all available to you, and actually as educators, it is all available to you free of charge. You earn points that you use to purchase the products on YIPI, and our sponsors actually fund that product. So YIPI is like getting a grant for free. So if the product on YIPI is 250 points, you can use your points and it is still free to the educator. There's never a charge on YIPI with money for the educator. I just want to make sure that's crystal clear. But some of the products are sponsored. So the Startup Trade Up, for instance, is sponsored. And if you want that product, we just YIPI make sure that there's a sponsor in the background and it will match. If you are joining us from an area that is not currently funded, you will not make a match to that. Currently, we have funding in the state of Ohio and in Northwest Arkansas. So if you're coming to us from any of those areas, you can use your points. If you're interested in this, the help from Nadia and Emily in the Startup Trade Up, which are the sponsored products, and you're coming from outside those areas, we are working diligently to find additional sponsors and additional funders to make that product and that resource available to you in addition to the 0 point product or in addition to the free curriculum that you're getting.
Yeah, and Robin, if you have people here that are outside of those two areas where they can purchase our Startup Trade Up consultation, please go ahead and access the materials. You don't have to use your YIPI points for that, but reach out. I dropped our email addresses into the chat here. So if you're not in that area and you still want to talk to us, reach out. We can still point you in the right direction.
Excellent. Well, and I appreciate that. So thank you. Thank you for looking out for all of our educators, regardless of their geographic location. Before I make a couple announcements, I just want to make sure that there aren't any questions. Anybody want to unmute and ask a question of Nadia or Emily? Okay, well, speaking of points, I want to make sure you guys all have your YIPI code so that you can get 250 extra YIPI points for joining us today at this Power Hour. Let's see, what was the code? I think it's NOV here. I'm going to type it in. November 2. Oops. I'm typing and I'm not typing in the wrong place. Give me 1 second. NOV 2 Power Hour. There is your code. It will also be sent to you in the follow-up email, and we will be sending all the information, including the slides that were used today in our follow-up information. We also have a survey for you, and Evan's going to drop that survey in. We're always looking for ways to improve and new topics that you guys want to learn about. So if you could just take a quick second and fill that in. And then just one real quick announcement. Our next Power Hour is Thursday, November 14th at 4 o'clock. Excuse me. It is all about contests and how contests can help build entrepreneurial skills. So we're going to learn about a couple new contests, including Waggy Labs Quests and Build.org's competition. And we have some additional information for you about all competitions. And of course, this year's Young Entrepreneur Institute's pitch contest. So we hope that you will join us again for another Power Hour. Again, that's Thursday the 14th. And I think that's the only other thing that I have. Last little reminder that YEI and our presenters today work in this space all the time. Reach out to any of us. We are happy to answer questions, happy to help you. We want to make bringing entrepreneurship education as easy as possible. And thank you all for joining.